गुरुन्मिलितं श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Welcome all of you. So we have studied till Shloka Kramanga mantra number 8, the God's eternal qualities. So we just saw the God's eternal quality. There are very divine qualities which are described in this particular verse number 8, the Shloka mantra number 8. He is omnipotent, he is omniscient, he is without any faults, he is Shuddha, he is pure, and he is uncontaminated by sin. He is very intelligent, a philosopher, and he is greatest and the controller of all. So these are the qualities of God we saw. After studying the qualities of God, now we will also study about Vidya and Avidya. Just to recollect and remind that we are studying five topics of Bhagavad Gita, five topics, which are the similar five topics of Bhagavad Gita also. There are five topics of Isopanisad also. There is Ishvara, Jiva, Kala, Karma, and Prakriti. So we studied here about Ishvara, mainly about Ishvara till now. And it is based, the whole thing is based on Ishavasha principle. Ishavasha principle is that God, the Supreme Person of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the controller, or he is the everything in animates and inanimates is under his control. And that's why a living entity, every jiva, should take whatever is in his quota. He should not take others' quota. That's what we saw. And then further, we saw there are different qualities of Krishna. Krishna is supremely independent. Then, the Supreme Lord is. We also saw the art of living. We also saw about the soul, the killer of the soul. Whoever is completely into vikarma is the killer of the soul. And we also saw seeing God everywhere and quantitative oneness, and then eternal qualities of Krishna. After studying this, now we are going to study about Vidya and Avidya. So these are very, very important topics to understand, which also relates with Prakriti, which also gives us the knowledge of Prakriti. So as I said, there are different topics. There is Jiva, Ishvara, Kala Karma, and Prakriti. So we will be studying about Jiva and Prakriti in this particular knowledge of Vidya and Avidya. And this Vidya and Avidya, how they are the part of Vedic scriptures, and that we will see. And then we'll also see the results of Vidya and Avidya, how it has impact on the living entity. Uh, that in detail we will study the results of Vidya and Avidya. And then further, we will also study about the how should we balance between Vidya and Avidya? So, for a living entity, how it is so very important to balance between Vidya and Avidya. We cannot be either on the either of the side, either Vidya or Avidya. So, before we could become discussion, before we start the discussion on Vidya and Avidya, uh, because it's a part of a knowledge, jnana. There is very important thing to understand that there is a jnana and vijnana. So you must have studied, or must be knowing that science is also called as vijnana. So jnana is a theoretical knowledge, and vijnana is the application and the realization of that particular knowledge. So Jnana should be converted into Vijnana is a very, very important thing. If knowledge is not converted into a realization, if it is, you must have heard very, very often that, there is just information, 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 and no transformation. That should not happen. So knowledge has to be transformed into a realization that is very, very important. And for that, the practice, the sadhana is very, very important. If there is no proper sadhana, if there is no proper practice, jnana will not convert into vijnana. That is, knowledge will not convert into realization, or information should be converted into transformation. That is very, very important. Otherwise, just having information is not sufficient. So, this particular topic of Vidya and Avidya is given a very great importance in both, in Bhagavad Gita also, and here in Upanishad also, in Isopanisad also. So these two books of Bhakti Shastri are a philosophical books, and that's why the part of a philosophy of Vidya and Avidya is very, very important. So let's go to the verse number 9. I just project it here. Mantra 9. Andhatamam pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya evate tamo yahau vidyayamrta. Those who engage in the culture of science activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. So this verse appears to be a little confusing, that there is something called as ignorance. Ignorance is very much condemned everywhere. Ignorance is ajnana, ignorance is avidya. So now, if somebody is into performing the activity of avidya, they will enter into a darkest region of ignorance. That is understood. But then what about worse still are those who engage in the culture of so-called knowledge. So this so-called knowledge is a very, very important thing to understand. Many times on the name of a spirituality, or many times on the name of a Vedic scripture, there are concoctions, or there are knowledge which can be also called as a misguided knowledge. So here Prabhupada, what word Prabhupada is using as a so-called knowledge can also be understood as a misguided knowledge. So there may be on the name of a scripture, on the name of a dharma, people may be misguiding. Like, we see these jihadis, they are always misguided by, those, whatever people, their teachers, that, if you do this particular thing, this, in the 26/11 attack, when the person was captured, he was told that, when the body, when your bodies will, when you die in this jihad, then your bodies will smell like a flower, and you need to have special fragrance, and then you will enter into a heavenly world. And then when he saw his friend's dead bodies, he was shocked. Is that how that can happen? So the point is there is just this is just a simple example to understand the misguided knowledge. So here in the Vedic knowledge also there is sometimes interpretations or knowledge which is misguided. So that misguided knowledge is worse than avidya. That misguided knowledge is worse than ignorance. This is what this verse is saying. The ignorance, so we can understand this in a better way. That ignorance is better than the misguided knowledge. So there is this English saying, ignorance is bliss. When a person is in ignorance, person is in not having any knowledge, he is blissful. Or Prabhupada sometimes say that fool is understood when he opens his mouth. That that a person who does not have knowledge, person who is a foolish person, he will be understood when he opens his mouth. Or similarly, a person who is ignorant will be understood when he opens the mouth. But then sometime that is better than a misguided knowledge. So we have to be very careful that we are not misguided. We have to be extremely careful. And then how can we be careful about it? That whenever we receive any kind of information or any kind of knowledge, we should confirm that with the authorities. That's very important. And who are the authorities? If you have received that knowledge from the scripture, Shastra, you have to confirm with the Guru and Sadhu. When you receive that information from sadhus in general, you have to confirm that with the Shastra and Guru. When you receive the information from the Guru, you can also confirm that from the Shastra and sadhus. So that is very, very important, by which we can confirm. That's very, otherwise our knowledge will be misguided. So you should always remember this triangle of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So whenever you receive any information, any knowledge, that should be confirmed with these three things. That's very, very important thing. Otherwise, you will be misguided. And that misguided knowledge is worst than being in ignorance. So this particular shloka, which talks about a people who worship avidya or culture of nescience, that is those who engage in a material life, karma, enter the region of a darkness of ignorance, a cycle of birth and death. To understand this ignorance or avidya in a different way is that Vidya talks about the self-realization. Vidya talks about the science of soul. And avidya talks about the science of body or maintenance of body. So uh, there are scriptures which talks about Ayurveda. There are scriptures which talks about Vastu Shastra. There are scriptures which talks about even astrology. All they are related to the body, or they are related to comforts of the body. Now you take Ayurveda and whatever difficulties you have, the Ayurveda will resolve those difficulties, vyadhi of the diseases of your body. Or you take Vastu Shastra. Vastu Shastra is for to make you comfortable stay in that house. Or there is Khagola Shastra, or the astrology or astronomy. That is the charts and the position of the stars and the planets in your life, and then the position, how it is changing and differing. That is also again related to make you comfortable in this material world, in the material body. And that's why this ignorance is not just a lack of knowledge. Ignorance here is about the avidya. And that avidya is related to this material body or material enjoyment. And this knowledge of ignorance will put a person into a darkest region of ignorance, that is a cycle of birth and death. So this is Andhakupa. This material world is called Andhakupa, or those Grahamedis who entered into a life of a married life, and then they are completely engrossed into a sense gratification. They don't have Krishna in the center. Those Grahamedis, or in general, those people who are living in this world only to satisfy their senses, will be taking care of their body extremely carefully. They'll be always careful about taking their body. And those people will ultimately end up into a darkest region of ignorance. What is the darkest region of ignorance? That darkest region of ignorance is nothing but the cycle of birth and death. So worst are still, so the first point is understood here that those who are engaged in a nescience activity, that is basically taking care of the body or satisfying the senses, they'll end up into a darkest region of ignorance, that is cycle of birth and death. The second part of the shloka, worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge, can be understood as those who are engaged into misguided knowledge, that is jnana, or the study of Veda, Vidya, without bhakti. So this is a misguided knowledge is also understood to be a receiving a knowledge which is not taking us close to God. So that knowledge which is not establishing our connection with Krishna, with the Atma's connection with Paramatma, if it is not established, that knowledge is also misguided knowledge. So there is also in the Veda, there are so many sacrifices, there are so many worshippers, there are so much of knowledge which talks about multiple demigods being supreme, and then you get into understanding of that demigod. So that jnana is confusing, and that jnana will many times misguide a person from the main goal of a human life, and that's why that jnana is very much condemned. So in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu also we will see Jnana Karmadi Anamrutam, we said that that particular jnana which is misguided, which is not taking close to Krishna, that particular karma which is full of sakama, that is that particular karma which is full of kamana and which is not bringing you close to God, that karma and that jnana is completely rejected by the practice of Bhakti Yoga. So here also this particular shloka is highlighting this, that the worse still are those who are engaged in so-called knowledge. So there are many people who are engaged in knowledge. You will find so many people reciting, 700 shlokas of Bhagavad Gita or 18,000 shloka verses of the Bhagavatam, or they'll quote this sukta, that sukta, this Upanishad, that Upanishad. So many things they'll go on quoting. But when it comes to practice, they are zero. When it comes to in fact performing a proper activities, proper karma, no, they will be. You will find them doing nonsense. You will find them doing vikarma. So that kind of knowledge is misguided. So a very easy way to understand that the knowledge which is bringing you close to bhakti or which help you to practice bhakti, that is the bhakti shastra, what we are studying, is a proper knowledge, is a proper vidya. But that knowledge, which is not, that knowledge is understood to be a jnana, that jnana, which is confusing you, which is diverting you from the goal of attaining Krishna, is condemned here. It is considered as a worst way of engaging in the so-called knowledge. Okay, so Vidya and Avidya is described here. Avidya is the ignorance, and in the part of Vidya, the Jnana, which is misguided, is completely condemned. The Jnana or the Vidya, which should help a person to attain a self-realization. Okay, let's go to the purport. Can somebody read the purport?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Can I Prabhuji?
Yes.
This mantra offers a comparative study of Vidya and Avidya. Avidya or ignorance is undoubtedly dangerous, but Vidya or knowledge is even more dangerous when mistaken or misguided. This mantra of Isopanisad is more applicable today that at any time in the past, modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education, but the result is that people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on the material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. As far as vidya is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the supreme lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. The more a man forgets this fact of life, the more he is in darkness. In view of this, a godless civilization directed toward the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated. Of the different classes of men, karmis, gnanis, and yogis, the kamis are those who engaged in the activities of sense gratification. In the modern civilization, 99.9% of the people are engaged in the activities of sense gratification under the flag of industrialism, economic development, altruism, political activism, and so on. All these activities are more or less based on satisfaction of the senses, to the exclusion of the kind of God consciousness described in the first mantra. In
Okay.
the language,
Here, Prabhupada is focusing on a very important factor. Prabhupada is talking here about first in the beginning, Prabhupada spoke about the Vidya and Avidya. Avidya is the ignorance, the lack of knowledge about the science of self-realization. And Vidya is a jnana, which may be appearing from the Vedic scriptures. But that jnana, if it is confusing, if it is misguiding, that is worst of what is mentioned. So Vidya is also understood to be a jnana, but that jnana has to be Bhakti Shastra based jnana. That jnana has to get a connect person close to Krishna. So, Avidya is very easy to understand. It is ignorance which is related to the body and mind and senses. But Vidya is understood to be a knowledge, jnana. In that jnana, one which is misguided knowledge and another which is a properly guided knowledge. So that is a very clear, a very important thing to understand. So, Prabhupada is writing here, as far as the Vidya is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. So, this particular statement very clearly explains the Vidya means the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything. Isha Vasham Idam Sarvam Yat Kinchit Jagatam Jagat. He is the proprietor of everything. So, Ishvara, knowledge about Ishvara is a part of Vidya. Knowledge about Jiva is a part of Ishvara. Connection between Jiva and Ishvara is a part of Vidya. But unfortunately, there is a lot of confusion, and that is misguiding a living entity. And forgetfulness of that fact that Krishna is the Ishvara is the ignorance. Okay. Further, Prabhupada is mentioning the different class of men, karmi, jnani, yogis. Karmis are those who are engaged in the activity of sense gratification. In the modern time, 99% are engaged into a sense gratification, economic development, altruism, political activities, and so many. So all these activities are more or less based on sense gratification. So this is basically avidya, ignorance. Okay, go ahead. And somebody else read?
Hare Krishna.
It's a request of mine that almost all of you should take interest in reading. All of you should participate in reading. So that's the request.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. In the language of Bhagavad Gita 7.15, people who are engaged in gross sense gratification are mundane asses. This ass is a symbol of stupidity. Those who simply engage in the profitless pursuit of sense gratification are worshipping avidya. According to Sri Isopanisad, and those who play the role of helping this sort of civilization in the name of educational advancement are actually doing more harm than those who are on the platform of gross sense gratification. The advancements of learning by a godless people is as dangerous as an valuable jewelry on the hood of the cobra. A cobra decorated with a valuable jewelry is more dangerous than one who decorated in the Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya 3.11.12. The advancement of education by the godless people is compared to decorations on a dead body. In India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body from the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. In the same way, modern civilization is the patchwork of activities meant to cover the perpetual miseries of material existence. All such activities are animated towards sense gratification, but above the sense is the mind. The senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. Thus, the aim of real education should be self-realization, realization of the spiritual values of the soul. Any education which does not lead to much realization must be considered avidya or science. And to culture such science means to go down to the darkest region of the ignorance. According to Bhagavad Gita 2.42 and 7.15, mistaken mundane educators are known as Vida
Vedavata.
Vidadarata and Maya Prita Jnana. They may also be atheistic demons, the lowest of men. Those who are Vedarata pose themselves as very learned in the Vedic literatures, but unfortunately they are completely diverted from the purpose of Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.15, it is said that the purpose of Vedas is to know the personality of the Godhead, but these Vedavada men are not at all interested in the personality of Godhead. On the con- contrary, they are fascinating by such fruitive results as the attainment of the heaven.
Okay.
As it,
Fine. So here, how is Vidya worse than avidya is to be understood very importantly. So as a Paramatma has a many energy like Parasya Shakti, Vividheya Shakti, with Shruyate. This particular shloka talks about Krishna or the Paramatma possessing many Shaktis. In one of the Shakti is the Maya Shakti. So this Maya Shakti, she has a two function. One is Vidya and Avidya. So Vidya, one of the function of Vidya, which is that which destroys the matter, and Avidya, that which destroys the that which not destroys, creates the matter. So people who become detached from the matter by Vidya can destroy matter, but they do not receive the shelter of the Lord, spiritual Shakti, unless they perform bhakti. So this particular part of Vidya, by the knowledge, by the jnana, like many times jnana is glorified very much. And the jnana is glorified in such a way that if you study fourth chapter, last few verses of Bhagavad Gita, there it talks the jnana is glorified in many different ways. Jnana di dabda karmani, or knowledge is like a sword, or it's like a fire. So with the help of a knowledge, person can cut his connection from the material world, material attachments, or from the matter. So that's why here it is said the knowledge is something which destroys the matter. And avidya is something which creates the matter, which brings you close to the matter, which is, people engaged in the material life are situated in the avidya, and their spiritual nature is covered by the darkest of the matter. So, this part of a vidya, which is making person detached from the matter, unfortunately, if it is not having connection with bhakti yoga, if it is not arising bhakti in the heart of a person, that knowledge is very dangerous. That particular part of a vidya is very dangerous, and that's why vidya and avidya are the functions. This kind of vidya and ignorance are the functions of maya. So if the jiva does not establish a relationship with Paramatma, he cannot be liberated from matter. And when one gives up the variety of a qualities found in this world as a despicable, one then becomes attached to something without qualities, which creates even great obstacle from the for the jiva. So that's why Prabhupada is further also talking about the material education is a godless civilization. Prabhupada is talking about the godless modern civilization. And then Prabhupada is saying modern civilization is just a patchwork of an activity of sense gratification meant to cover the perpetual miseries of a material existence. So this it is just a patchwork, Prabhupada is saying. And then what kind of patchwork? Of an activity of sense gratification. So this modern civilization is just dragging person towards a civilization, sense gratification. And that's why it is more getting into a vidya. And then all this modern knowledge, modern civilization is nothing but avidya, which is just moving around ahara nidra bhaya maitunam cha. And that's why this is a dark region or darkest region of sense gratification or bodily comforts is avidya. And vidya is those who help such a godless civilization by so-called advancement of a material education are doing more harm than the gross sense gratifiers who are ignorant and less educated. So Prabhupada is here also talking about the mundane educators who are known as the Vedavatarata or Maya Apruhita Jnana. So this Maya Apruhita Jnana is very nicely elaborated in Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita talks about this Maya Apruhita Jnana, that this particular knowledge is very, very dangerous, which is captured by the external potency of Krishna, that is Maya. And that's why, because of that, there is a forgetfulness of Krishna. This Maya Apruta Jnana makes person forgetful of Krishna. And he's just, with the flowery words of Vedas and or with the, alluring words of Veda, he's just captivated by those words and he is away from Krishna. And that knowledge is a Maya Apruta Jnana. And those are like atheist or demonic people, or they are the lowest of men, it is said. So those who are Vedavadarata pose themselves are very learned in the Vedic literature, but unfortunately they are completely diverted from the purpose of Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the purpose of the Veda is to know the personality of Godhead. Vedesha sarver aham ego vedyo Vedantavrit Veda Videha Shaham. This particular shloka talks about knowing the purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna to be Supreme Personality of Godhead. But unfortunately, these so-called Vedavadaratas are, they are not interested in Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why this Vedya is very, very dangerous. It's stated in this particular shloka. Okay. So Prabhupada is again, further condemning these Vedavadaratas who are so-called intelligent people who are not close to Krishna and they're neglecting the authorities of the acharyas and they are forgetting the main origin of the knowledge, Vidya, and they are just engrossed into sense gratification. Their purpose is to satisfy their own senses. And they do not know the Vedic literature in collection of the extraordinary books that can be understood only through the chain of a disciplic succession. So we are fortunate to study those books in the by the mercy of our Guru Shishya Parampara and the chain of a disciplic succession. And these Bhakti Shastras are bringing us close to Krishna. That's our great fortune. Further, Prabhupada is mentioning, can somebody read from this? One must approach a bona fide spiritual master.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Am I audible? One must approach a bona fide spiritual master in order to understand the transcendental message of the Vedas. That is the direction of the Mundakopanishad 1.2.12. These Vedavadarata people, however, have their own acharyas who are not in the chain of transcendental succession. Thus, they progress into the darkest region of ignorance by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. They fall even further into ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedas at all. The Maya Paratjnana class of men are self-made gods. Such men think that they themselves are God and that there is no need of worshipping any other god. They will agree to worship an ordinary man if he happens to be rich, but they will never worship the personality of Godhead. Such men, unable to recognize their own foolishness, never consider how it is that God can be entrapped by Maya, his own illusory energy. If God were never, if God were ever entrapped by Maya, Maya would be more powerful than God. Such men say that God is all powerful, but they do not consider that if He is all powerful, there is no possibility of His being overpowered by Maya. These self made gods cannot answer all these questions very clearly. They are simply satisfied to have become God themselves. Hare Krishna.
Mm. Ultimately, these people who are misguided consider themselves God, and they consider themselves very knowledgeable, and they are the people who are completely misguided. The purpose of the Vedic education is to know the Supreme Personal Godhead, awaken the God consciousness, as stated in the mantra number one, Ishavashidam Sarvam, and to bring one back to Godhead, to receive the forgetful soul, lost relations with the God. The real educator is one who must approach a bona fide spiritual master to understand the Vedic message. That's very, very important. So there are multiple qualities of the Veda Radharata is mentioned. They pose themselves as a learned in the while Vedas, are diverted from the purpose of the Vedas. They are fascinated by the fruitive results of the Vedic rituals. They condemned they condemn the Puranas, which are the atheistic Vedic, which is the authentic Vedic explanation of the layman for the layman. Disobey or neglect the authority of acharyas. Do not know that the Vedas are understood only with the parampara. Interpret the Vedas to suit their own purpose. Misguide others by misunderstanding the misinterpretation of Vedas. Present some unscrupulous person among them as the leading exponent of the Vedic knowledge. They have their own acharya. And who are they have their own acharya, and there is no parampara. Fall into a darkest region of ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedic Vedas at all, may think themselves liberated but are actually not liberated. And there is this was the quality of a Veda Vadarata. And there is also knowledge of self-made gods, Maya Apurta Jnana. They think themselves God. They find no need of worship and any other God. Yes. They worship an ordinary rich man, but no God, not God. They don't consider that God cannot be entrapped by the Maya. They don't consider that the God cannot be entrapped by the Maya, his old energy. They consider that God also can be caught by or entrapped by the Maya. That is a foolish understanding they have. Okay, so this particular word mantra talks about Vidya and Avidya. In the part of Avidya, it is talking about ignorance, no lack of knowledge. And in the part of Vidya, it talks about knowledge, which is misguided knowledge, and which will drag a person away from bhakti, away from Supreme Lord Krishna. And that is under the control of these, both the things are under the control of Maya. And that's why the person is, though he's called as a Veda Vadarata, that person he has a lot of difficulties, lot of bad qualities, and that Veda Vadarata is never they are always misguided and they never go close to God. And similarly, there are Maya Aprita Jnana, the people who are self-made God, and then this self-made God are also misdirected, or they misguide many people, or they are always they consider Lord is also trapped by the Maya or external potency, and unfortunately they are only trapped by the external potency. Okay, any question till now?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Prabhu, just give me 1 minute. Huh?
Yeah.
मी हार्मोनियम ठेवले चावी देऊ तिथे परत
ठीक आहे. चावी हार्मोनियम जिथं होतं तिथेच ठेवलं.
तेच ठेवलं.
Yes, bro, please ask question.
Yes, Prabhu, as we know, in this material world, or any institution or government giving the education is totally avidya as per our Vedic Shastra.
Okay.
So how can save our coming generation and any footprint we have, Prabhu, for that?
Okay. So, first of all, it is very important to understand what is this avidya which is spoken here. Avidya is mainly related to the body. And avidya is, like this engineering, the medical science, whatever is taught, with though this is a ignorance, this is a avidya, but still that is a required knowledge. For what? For earning, that is to maintain the body. This medical science, which is also helping a body to maintain, the engineering science, which is helping to create the, whatever machineries, whatever, things. So all these are utilized in maintenance of the body. Unfortunately, that is utilized in the maintenance of, that is utilized in sense gratification. That is a very unfortunate situation. Previously, whenever the, just understanding that on the Vedic scriptural perspective, as I mentioned, there is Ayurveda, which is talking about medical science. There is also, there are many engineering fields are also part of Vedic literature, or there is law, and there is so many other things which are also part of Vedic scriptures. Vedas also talk about. So when they were taught in the Gurukul system of our education, of our in Indian education system, they were also given a precaution. They were also given a limitations to utilize that knowledge, and that was just to maintain this body comfortably. It's just to maintain this body and soul together. So avidya, whatever we are receiving through our different institutes, colleges, studies, if it is excessively used, unfortunately it has been it is used very excessively, and if it is taking us more and more close to sense gratification, that is dangerous. So this knowledge, which is about maintenance of the body, is required to keep the body and soul together. So how can we help our next generation? So our next generation should be given this understanding, at least those who are in our close proximity, whom we can guide, whom we can take care. We should give them a continuous knowledge, information or guidance about this particular thing, that this part of this particular avidya, the knowledge which is just taking us close to sense gratification, maintenance of this body, should be utilized only for the maintenance of the body and not for the excessive sense gratification. That kind of information we can give. Apart from that, if we can help children get more understanding and knowledge about the vidya part, that will be very helpful. If we can help our next generation to receive the knowledge of vidya, and when we are receiving the knowledge or receiving the vidya, it must be connected to Krishna. That's very important. It should not be just some happy thought. It should not be just a relationship based. It should not be just based on the mind control or sense control. It has to have connection with God. If it is not connected to a God, if they're not rooted into a Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, then there are chances of them getting misguided. So we have to be careful about it. Okay, bro?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Anyone else want to ask something?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Yes.
Prabhuji, I have a little confusion. In Vidya, you said the knowledge of soul, right? And you rightly said that it can be misguided if it is not properly conceived from authority, right? So it is a part of Vidya only, misguided knowledge.
So the vidya, like as I said, avidya is ignorance. Ignorance means which is related to body. Very easy to understand. In the part of vidya, there is a knowledge, but that knowledge can be a maya apruta jnana. That knowledge can be either making a person God, like the understanding of Mayavad understanding. Mayavad understanding is coming from the root of Advaita philosophy. Now, where is this Advaita philosophy mentioned? Advaita philosophy is also mentioned into Vedas. It's a part of a jnana. It's a part of Vidya. Vedas are the part of knowledge. Vedas are the part of the Vidya. In this, if that, it is talking about Advaita philosophy is talking about everything is one. And then you can also become one. That is misguided. You becoming one is a misguided knowledge. Or you becoming God is a misguided knowledge. That misguided knowledge, which is a part of a Vidya, is dangerous, which is under the external potency of Krishna, that is Maya. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, the Maya, she is holding Vidya also and Avidya also. Avidya is very easy to understand, that is related to the body. Vidya, which is misguiding, which is not bringing close to Krishna, like this particular knowledge of Maya, that you can become God. Or that person is offensive to Krishna. That person is thinking that I am God. Who is Krishna? I don't consider him supreme. He is being offensive. So he is misguided. There are hardly any chances of him again getting connected to Krishna. He will be always into a worst knowledge. So that particular part of our Vidya, which is under Maya, is dangerous. But that Vidya, which is giving you the understanding of Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the first mantra, Isha Vasham Idam Sarvam, that is also part of Vidya, which is bringing you close to Krishna, is very, very important. Okay, is that clear your confusion, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm sorry. I could not sleep yesterday whole night because one of my close devotee friend was very, very serious and I had to be in hospital for the whole time. And then since morning, I was very much tied up with the DT services and our Yagni course. So I'll not be able to continue class after this because all of you assembled. So I thought I'll at least talk about the first mantra. So I'll stop here. We will again meet on the next Saturday. Okay. Sorry for that. I could not continue. I wanted to complete 2 more mantras today, but not in a position to complete. I'm not very comfortable. Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji. No problem.
No problem.
Take care.
Okay, Prabhuji. Take care, Prabhuji. Thanks, Prabhuji.
Mm.
Thanks for
Thank you, sir.
Vidya and Avidya. This
Thank
wonderful
you.
explanation,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Radhika Mataji. Mataji, can you please close the meeting because you are host now. Radhika Mataji. Nandan Bro. Haribol. Nandan Bro. Nandan Prabhu. अरे यार